मेरा बेटा फिरोज है और मैं पूरी दिन इसके साथ नर्सरी राइम्स सुनते रहता हूँ. So today I thought I would walk through a process of making a chord melody for Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. What do you think? आज हम 5 steps follow करेंगे to create a cool chord melody. The first thing is to learn the melody itself. At least on the guitar, हम top 2 strings पे melody सीखेंगे and we're going to really internalize them. Then we're going to take the stock chords, the original chords of the song, and put them underneath the melody and to create a basic chord melody. Third step में हम C major scale के जो chords हैं, we're going to go deeper into them and substitute new chords into the chord melody to create some interesting sounds. And the fourth step is we're going to jazz it up by introducing secondary dominants, 2/5s from other keys, and also tritone substitutions. Our final step we're going to borrow chords from other modes and introduce them into our chord melody. It's going to get really, really fun. So let's dig in, dive in, and have some fun. If you haven't already, please do subscribe to our channel. The subscribe link is at the bottom, and we look forward to hearing from you. The first 2 parts of the 5-part lessons are suitable for beginners to early intermediate guitar players. The balance 3 require a fair amount of knowledge of harmony, which you can also get from some of our earlier lessons, for example, lesson 2 and 3 and 4. Do stick around and have fun. Chord melody को create करने के लिए the first thing we need to do is really understand and learn and memorize the melody. और actually जो melody है, we're going to learn it on the top 2 strings. Okay, so we're going to play this song in 2/4. That's the time signature, and it actually fits quite conveniently. This is a simple melody. It actually, depending on how you think about it, it doesn't have anything more than quarter notes or half notes. This song has essentially 8 into 3, 24 bars, okay? And it has the first part of the melody, which is dun, 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 da, 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 da. That's the first part. The second part is a little more, is the almost like a response to the first part of the melody. It goes na 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 na. Then the last part is just the first 8 bars repeating themselves. Okay, the song is in the key of C. So let's do a little bit of an analysis of what the harmony is. Okay, in the key of C major, we have the following triads. We have C major, triangle means major, a little dash means minor, E minor, F major, G major, A minor, and B diminished. These are the triads. And if we were to put Roman numerals under them, which is always useful, this is 1, this is a 2 chord, this is 3, this is 4, this is 5, this is 6, and this is 7 diminished. If you're struggling with this, आपने ये पहले नहीं देखा है, go back to lesson 4, in which we really go into how to make chords from scales and review that. So essentially, if you look at this tune, let's look at the first 8 bars and see what type of chords we have. In the key of C, we have a 1 chord, that's what starts it. Then we have a 4 chord, and then somewhere later we have a 5 chord. And if you look, actually basically the harmony is just a 1, 4, and 5. They only have 1, 4, and 5 chords from the key of C. अब हम melody सीखेंगे on the top 2 strings of the guitar, which are the B and E strings. You want to learn them high up, and then you're going to put the chords underneath. So let's take the first 8 bars. You can play with your thumb or finger or a pick, it doesn't matter. Now let's do the middle 8 bars. Now the last 8 bars, even though the melody notes are the same, we're going to try and play it in a slightly different position up the neck, and you'll see that this is quite useful when we add more complex chords later on. Cool. So make sure you've memorized the entire single melody as it's written carefully. Be able to play it with the metronome and then without. Okay, it should sound like this. Yeah, and try and be a little more careful than I was about finger positions, but you get the idea. हमारे second step में we're basically going to add the chords underneath the melody note. So if I show you on this diagram, each one of these boxes represents the chord. This is the neck of the guitar and this is the chord shape. And this just keeps going on. So for example, this is the first fret, second fret, and this is the third fret, and this is the simple C major shape. The X means you don't play that string, okay? For this diagram here, this 5 means this is the 5th fret. So this is going to be your 5, 6, 7, 8. So in this case, I'm going to put my pinky over here, my ring finger on the 7th fret, this finger, which is the middle finger, on the 6th fret, and there'll be a little bar over here. Anyway, so that's pretty self-explanatory, but I wanted to make sure that you understand that. So the first 4 bars sound like this. Okay, so let's pay attention to what's happening. What you'll see, and I'm going to show you, is that the melody note actually falls within the chord. So, pehle bar mein, the melody note is C, right, which is just the root itself. In the second bar, the melody note is G, which in G is the 5th of C major. In the third bar, we have A. A is the 3rd of F major. And then finally, we have G again, which is the 5th of C major. In the 5th bar, we have F, which is, well, guess what? F is what? It's the root itself of F major. In the 6th bar, we have E, which is the 3rd of C major. We have 7th bar, we have D, which is the 5th of G7. And then finally, we have C major, which is just the root itself. I encourage you to do this for the entire tune and map out what the interval is of the melody relative to the chord underneath. It's a great exercise and one that you want to do when you're making chord melodies. So let's slowly play the first 8 bars. So then let's slowly play the first 8 bars. Now let's do the middle 8 bars. All right. So here I'm going to change the voicing for C major a little bit and use the drop 2 voicing on the 8th fret 6th string for the second part. Now we're just going to repeat the first line. Now you can use a pick or your thumbs. I like to use the top three fingers on my right hand to play the melody and part of the harmony, and the thumb to play the bass note of the chord. Right? So I'm playing the melody note with my ring finger, but I still got my thumb on the bass. And it's the same thing if I play the C major on the 8th fret 6th string. Right, I've got my melody note up here for the second section, but my thumb is on the bass. As we saw in the example, अब अब तीसरी step में we're making the harmony and the chords more interesting. So what we're going to do is we're going to add more diatonic 7th chords into the mix. So if you remember, the harmonized C major scale in 7th chords is as follows. You have C major 7, you have D minor 7. Remember, the triangle is major and the dash is minor. You have E minor 7, you have F major 7, you have G7, you have A minor 7, and then you have B minor 7 flat 5. Okay, so you have 1 major 7, 2, 3, you have 4 7, 5 7, 6, and then you have a little half diminished, okay, as a 7th chord. Okay, so what's interesting is that there are 3 types of families within chords that you can substitute within each other. Okay, so the first one is called the tonic family. Okay, a tonic family may, there are 3 chords. You have the root, the 1 chord, you have the 3 chord, and you have the 6 chord, and you can interchange any of these chords for each other. The next family is called the subdominant family. Okay, and this is the 4 chord and the 2 chord. Now these two are also interchangeable, subdominant. Okay, oh, my handwriting is terrible, but here goes, subdominant. Okay, and the final family we have is the, oops, let me write that again, is the dominant family. Okay, dominant, and this is basically the 5 chord and the half diminished, okay, or the diminished triad. Okay, so again, these two are interchangeable. So let's see what I've done. Well, I've actually used this principle pretty much all throughout. The first bar is C major as it is. The second bar was also C major, but I've substituted it with a 3 chord, right? As you've seen over here, this is 1, 3. The third bar is F major as it is. I've left and C major as the one chord. Now here I had another F major which I have substituted, and F major is the 4 chord, and I substituted with a 2 chord, which is D minor 7. So this is 2 in place of 4, and the rest of the bars on the first line are the same. Now, if you remember here, I had a C major 7. And guess what? Well, a C major 7 I can substitute with any other chord in the tonic family, which I've chosen to be a 6. So I have A minor 7, and a 6 as well, it's an A minor 7. Then I had an F major here, which again I have substituted for a 2 chord, which is a D minor 7. I had another C major, again I've used 6, and so on and so forth. Now here I wanted to create an interesting little bass movement, so I've used C major, then I've substituted a 7 chord here, A minor, and then G7. Instead of it just being something like this. Previously it was just... Now I've got... You can hear that bass going. Sounds pretty cool, right? All right. And well, the last line is pretty straightforward, except I've done that similar thing with the sort of bass moving down right at the end. Play this really slowly. Now the second line. And now the third line. Nice. अब हम jazz substitutions पे पहुंच गए, and they're actually not that complicated. अब हम last 4 bars of the first line पे focus करेंगे. I know I want to end the line with C major, the melody note being the root itself. Now, in order to get to this, I actually want to go from D minor to G7 to C major. So something that sounds like this. It'll go. Okay. Now, as you notice, मैंने यहाँ G7 नहीं use किया. I'm using a D flat 7 effectively. Well, here's what's interesting. The chord tones of G7 are G, B, D, and F. Okay, so that's 1, the 3, the 5, and the flat 7. Now, D7, just to show you something, D flat 7 has the following chord tones. It has a root, which is D flat. It has a 3, which is F. It has a 5, which is A flat. Okay, and it has a flat 7 that is B. So what you notice is that G7 and D flat 7 share 2 notes in common, B and D. Effectively, the third of G7th becomes the flat 7 of D flat 7, and the flat 7 of G7 becomes the third of D flat 7. They actually share 2 very strong chord tones, the 3rd and the 7th. This is known as a triquetra tritone substitution. And we're going to use this later on as well. So the last two bars, instead of sounding like this, now sound like this. Just a little bit of tension there. Anyway, I wanted to just demonstrate what that tritone substitution is like. But outside of this, we have something even more interesting. Now that we have a 2-5 here, right, a 2-5 in the key of C major is D minor and G7. But in jazz, if you look at a tune like Moments, you'll notice that there are a bunch of what we call cascading 2-5s that lead to your final resolution chord. So we already have a 2-5 in the key of C, but like what I've done here, you can have a 2-5, which is E minor, A7, a whole step higher. And then you can also have another 2-5, which is F minor, B flat 7, a whole step higher than that. So this chord progression sounds something like this. Sounds pretty cool, right? Okay, so remember, this is a 2-5 in the key of D, D, and this is a 2-5 in the key of E flat. So this is a cascading set of 2-5s that land up in C major. And what's interesting is you'll see that even though they're outside the key, the melody note, which is F, let's say in the first one, belongs in that chord. It belongs to F minor, it's the root. And for B flat 7, the melody note F is the 5th. Similarly, when I go to E minor 7, you have the same concept. You have a root, and when I go to A7, I get a 5th. Okay, and then for D minor 7, again, I have a root. And if this was a G7, I'd have a 5th, but it's a D flat 7, so this becomes a flat 9, and then again, this is just a root. So it's quite interesting, right? Okay. Now, in the second line, again, I have my target is G7, and I'm going to start with a 2-5 in the key of F, and then cascade all the way down to G7, and we get to something very interesting over here. Now, in this line, okay, I was choosing a set of cascading 2-5s that are basically E minor, A7, D minor, G7, and then C major, okay, and then ending on G7. But I'm going to use tritone substitutions instead of the 5 chord, okay? So instead of playing E minor, A7, I'm going to do E minor, E flat 7. Instead of D minor to G7, I'm going to have D minor, D flat 7. And then I'm going to have, of course, C major, and then just a little passing chord, which is A flat 7, that leads to G7. Alright, so what I'm doing is, well, the first 4 bars of that last line are the same as the first 4 bars of the very first line, and in the last line, I'm starting out, instead of C major, I've got a B minor 7 flat 5. I'm walking the bass, essentially a little bit of bass movement, going down to A minor 7. I'm choosing the 6th chord. Then I've got a D7, so I've got a little 2-5 here. And then I want to resolve to C major eventually, but I'm going to add an A flat 7, which is a passing chord, hitting G7 and then C major. But now we're going to borrow chords from C natural minor. This lesson ke liye you need to be familiar with the concept of parallel modes, where basically we take the same key center but construct a new scale and get chords out of that scale. So we're going to use C natural minor. इसका नाम है C Aeolian. Okay, now C, the notes for C Aeolian are C, D, E flat, F, G, A flat, B flat. Now, if I harmonize this, that means I build seventh note or four note chords from each of these chord tones, I get the following chords. I get C minor 7, I get D minor 7 flat 5, I get E flat major 7, I get F minor 7, I get G minor 7, I get A flat major 7, and I get B flat 7. You need to be familiar with harmonizing scales, which is in lesson 3 and lesson 4. But let's also put these in terms of Roman numerals. Roman numerals ka matlab hai ki we need to basically understand the quality of this chord. So, for example, in the key of C major, the first chord is a capital 1. It's a 1, that means it's a major 7th chord. Similarly, the 2 chord is a small Roman numeral 2, minor chord, and so on and so forth. So the first chord is a, here we go, a minor 7. The second chord is a 2 half diminished. The third chord is a major chord, and just for comparison, in C major, the third chord is a minor 7th chord. The fourth chord in the key of C minor is a minor 7th chord. The fifth chord is a minor 5th chord. The sixth chord is, in fact, a major 7th chord, which, unlike C major, is a minor chord. And finally, the 7th chord is a dominant 7 chord. The 7th chord in itself is a 7th chord. Here's the new exercise. A pehle line mein, I haven't changed much. You can look at most of these concepts. They're in the previous 4 examples. But here we have started changing things. Now in the second line, let me play you the original and then I'll play you the new. So the first 4 bars should sound like this in the original. But I have substituted them to sound like this. Right? Sounds really sort of ethereal, sounds really cool. So A flat major 7 is not in the key of C major, but if we go up a little bit, you'll see that A flat major is the 6th chord in the 6 major 7 in the key of C minor. So this is a 6, let me try that again. This is a 6th chord. Okay, 6 major. B flat 7, if I go up here, B flat 7 is the 7th chord in the key of C minor. So, and it's a dominant chord. Good. A minor 7 is in the key of C, so that's fine. But then again, we end with B flat 7, which is a 7 dominant chord in the key of C minor. It's the 7th chord. E flat major 7 is not in the key of C, so let's go back up. Well, it's the 3rd chord in C minor, so that's a 3 major 7, D minor, and the rest of this line pretty much in the key of C major. This is just a passing tone. Now let's go to the last line. Again, we have C major 7, then we have B flat 7, which is not in the key of C major. So this, as we know, is a 7 chord in the key of C minor. Here we have another E flat major, which is a 3 chord in the key of C minor. So the last line, instead of sounding like this, now sounds like this. Pretty cool, right? And the last 4 lines, last 4 bars would be okay, so here's what's happening here. Again, I've borrowed a chord which is from C minor, and F major is back in the key of C. I've borrowed a chord to replace the C major. Instead of C major, I've got the 7th chord from C minor. I've got the F major here, and then I've got a 3 chord again from the key of C minor. This D flat 7 is in neither of these keys. It's just delaying the resolution of C major by moving up a half step. It's just something that sounds cool. So let's play the whole last line in the original and then as it is now. And here it is reharmonized. So if you have any questions, comments, or suggestions, please email me at karan@Goa Jazz Academy. And make sure to subscribe to our channel on YouTube, on Instagram, on Facebook. It's just at Goa Jazz Academy. Have a great evening, day, or afternoon, or morning, wherever you are. And I look forward to seeing you in the next video.